It's a Monday morning at Brooklyn Law School, and Professor Margaret Berger is deep into the minutiae of case law. It's gripping stuff.
Stop, wait a second. Wait.
The purse is gone in just 9 seconds, but a room full of law school students watch it happen, and they become eyewitnesses themselves. This is not a real crime. The whole thing is staged for the TV cameras. The purse snatcher, a TV employee. Once it's over, they're asked for a description of the intruder.
I wonder if I could describe him. I don't remember a thing about him, other than maybe odd shape of nose.
The class is warned not to share their thoughts about the intruder. Clearly, this incident, taped in 1995, is not a rigorous scientific experiment. But it does yield the kind of results that investigators run into all the time as they look for that crucial eyewitness, the one whose testimony could provide the big break. Roy Malpass is a psychology and criminology professor at the University of Texas. He was a consultant for this demonstration. The day after the staged purse snatching, Professor Malpass interviews 29 of the student eyewitnesses to get their descriptions.
5'6" or 5'7"?
5'7", 5'8".
5'9", 5'10",
5'11".
6 feet.
6'2".
Descriptions of what the intruder was wearing are all over the map too.
He had a ski jacket on with yellow trim on the pockets.
He was wearing a ski jacket. It was white.
Their shirt was a plaid pattern. I think it was a dark plaid pattern, like brownish.
In fact, the purse snatcher had on a white t-shirt, a denim shirt, a blue ski jacket with black trim and jeans. The student eyewitnesses don't fare any better describing his face and hair.
He has like a rounded face.
He had a slim face.
It wasn't entirely straight. It seemed like it had some kind of wave.
It was straight, probably shoulder length, or not shoulder length, short.
I think he was slightly balding.
He had a really weird-looking nose. It looked like it was off, like it might have been broken or something before.
JP was the guy who ran after the intruder. There's an important reason he remembers something strange about the purse snatcher's nose.
I don't remember a thing about him, other than maybe odd shape of nose.
It is false information planted by Berger, and JP processes it as a fact. It shows just how malleable memory can be. Afterwards, JP doesn't even remember the professor's comment.
I don't know, I've been tuning out professors since I was 12.
So, is there anything odd about the perpetrator's nose at all? JP tries to identify the intruder from photos.
I'd say that's him.
Doesn't seem to have any problem with his nose.
No more than arrested him.
Memory isn't always the most reliable way to identify a criminal suspect, even though the stakes couldn't be higher.
Not only do people not do it well, but they don't understand why, and that contributes to it not being done well. So that police would use procedures that don't work very well, and they're completely unaware of the fact that the procedures aren't working well.
Studies by psychologist Rod Lindsay and his colleague Gary Wells show that simple procedural changes in the lineup can have a profound effect on eyewitness accuracy. These days, police departments are much more likely to use photo lineups instead of physical lineups. But live or not, lineups are critical.
About 20% of the time, witnesses are picking someone who the police simply put into the lineup to serve as a known innocent filler.
When most people think about memory, they think that they experienced some event And the memory for that event gets tucked all of a piece into some little cubby hole in their brain. And then when they try to remember that, they dig around through all the cubby holes in their brain. And eventually you find this entire memory and pull it out, and you can sort of re-experience it like you plugged a videotape into the VCR. And really what happens is more complicated.
Our memories are constructed from bits and pieces of the past. That's how two people can end up with somewhat different recollections of the same event.
I'm Paige Smith. I had an experience with my brother when I was about 11 years old. It's one of my better getting hurt stories.
I'm Mike Smith. My sister has memories of things we did in the past. Now we're going to see if my memories are anywhere close to what she remembers.
My brother was about 13. I was probably around 11.
I was 13 and Paige would have been 10.
It was mid to late afternoon, summer, end of summer, August, very hot.
I think the accident happened in the summer, but it was definitely kind of in the middle of the day, hot and sunny day.
My brother had a go-kart that my father had made for him with this little tiny engine on the back and a pole for a steering wheel that attached to the two wheels.
We were in our neighborhood riding what I think was a scooter.
And we were driving down my neighborhood street.
I had Paige on the back.
And I'm sitting on that little steering wheel pole.
We were headed down to a friend of mine's house.
And we're on the wrong side of the street.
And I was following a friend of mine who also had a small motorcycle.
And a car starts coming down the street towards us. And I kind of say, watch it.
He stopped short.
Mike ends up swerving.
Both Paige and I went tumbling down the street.
It throws me in front of the go-kart and pushes me.
I don't think she would have been screaming and crying.
All I remember is screaming.
Paige ended up with probably some knee scrapes, road rash. Looked worse than it was.
I was completely cut up on my wrist and on my knees, bleeding.
I knew I was going to be in trouble.
My brother, gets off the go-kart and rushes to me and immediately says, "Don't tell Mom and Dad."
I'll fix it. I'll figure out what to do. Don't say anything.
I was in a lot of pain. I think he probably looked me over and doesn't look that bad. We'll get away with this.
Paige was alive. That was apparent, so I figured I could just leave her and deal with that later.
That's pretty much what happened.
When Paige was experiencing this event, it was summer, it was hot, she was experiencing certain visual sensations, she was looking at her brother, and she was looking at the street around her, and she was hearing the loud noise of the vehicle.
Watch
it! All of these different aspects of the event were being represented in different parts of her brain.
Don't tell Mom and Dad!
There are different parts of your brain that process visual information, auditory information, and emotional information. And so what you're experiencing now is the combination of separate clumps of neurons firing together.
How are the different parts of a memory connected in the brain? A structure called the hippocampus may help tie them together.
You can think of all of these distributed blobs of neurons as different balloons that are floating around. You can think of what the hippocampus does as taking the strings of these balloons and tying them all together in a knot. You just have to sort of tug on that knot. And all the appropriate balloons dip down, and you're effectively dealing with the memory that you'd experienced at some point in the past. But this gets a little more complicated.
Trying to remember a particular instance where I told Paige to tell something that was a lie to my parents is kind of difficult, because at that period of my life, I was probably doing that quite a bit. Every time I got some kind of motorized vehicle, I flipped it over.
He probably has too many moving vehicle stories to remember which one I'm involved with.
But I could be wrong.
What this incident with Paige and Mike shows us is that memory is a constructive process. We start out with a general idea of what it is we're looking for, and we use this to kind of dredge around in memory to try to elicit from our hippocampus little fragments. And then using this general sense of what happened, there was a go-kart incident and Paige fell off. We just glue these little fragments into place, and there's room for error to creep in. You get the sense with Mike that he's been in lots of motor vehicle accidents, and what happens when you have lots of similar episodes stored in memory, you end up remembering what all of these episodes have in common, but you have very poor memory for the details of any one particular episode, and that leaves you with a lot of gaps.